In Final Fantasy XIV, by simply monitoring your party's buff icons, skill animations, and sound effects, you can avoid stepping all over your co-healer's cooldowns, and even wasting some of your own. Starting off with the most basic, you can see what your co-healer is casting right in the party list next to their name. And if it's a single target heal, or hardcast resurrect, it even lists the number of the player being targeted corresponding to their position on the party list. And speaking of rezzing, it's usually wise to wait a second before raising someone, and first watch to see if your co-healer's mana suddenly drops or if they pop Swiftcast, as both are indications that they are probably in the process of rezzing someone. After that, you then know that their Swiftcast is on cooldown for a minute, so you'd be the next one up to res unless they want to hardcast a res, which again you can see them doing right in the party list. Moving on, you're going to want to eventually familiarize yourself with all buff icons pertaining to heal over time, heal boosting, and mitigation skills. Though to keep it simple, we're only going to be going over the ones that the healers have in this video. When it comes to heal over times, every healer has at least 2, and they all stack. Even the same exact skill used by 2 of the same job healer. The only things that do not stack are barrier healers' GCD shields, 2 instances of the same heal over time from a single player, and usually the mitigation effect of the same cooldown used by 2 different players of the same job. It's also very important to understand that heal over times tick or heal every 3 seconds for the potency listed in their description. So, for example, in the current patch, White Mage's Asylum lists its cure potency as only 100. However, it has a 24-second duration, meaning it ticks for a 100 potency worth of healing 8 times, for a total potency of 800 over its entire duration, which is actually quite a decent amount. Starting with the pure or regen healers, White Mage and Astro both have 2 on-demand GCD heal over times that are essentially the same. For AoE, there's Medica 2 and Aspected Helios, which heal for a little bit up front and then a moderate amount over 15 seconds. Then for single target, there's Regen and Aspected Benefit, which actually do a ton of healing for a single button press. If you see one of these single target regen icons pop up on a non-tank job, you can expect more than half of their HP to be restored over the next 10 to 15 seconds. So don't be too quick to heal if you know that there is not any damage coming out for a while and the regens are flowing. Astros also have Celestial Opposition, which is basically an instant cast OGCD version of Medica 2 or Aspected Helios, and it also has a very distinct glass shattering or crystallized sound effect that you can usually hear if you're even somewhat close to your co-healer. Then for the barrier healers, both Scholar and Sage get a free heal over time ability early on that has a minute cooldown. Scholar's Whispering Dawn lasts a little bit longer than Sage's Physis, but at level 60, Physis becomes a little bit stronger overall and grants a 10% healing bonus to the party. After that, each healer has what I like to call bubbles or domes. White Mage has Asylum, which heals for a little bit less per tick than Medica 2, but lasts for 24 seconds, making it a pretty decent size heal overall, though this only works so long as everyone stays in the circle. Astro's Dome is Collective Unconscious, and this heals over 15 seconds, as well as also granting a 10% damage reduction for as long as the Astro doesn't do any other action. This mitigation effect is however retained briefly even after canceling the T-pose, so you'll generally see Astros just flash this really quick before a raid wide to first get the mitigation, and then get the full value of the heal afterwards. Then when it comes to Sage and Scholar, their domes are essentially the same, but function differently. The main difference being that the Scholar has to place their dome in a specific spot, and party members need to stay inside it to gain its benefits. Whereas the Sage just does a ground pound and their bubble expands outward from them, granting everyone hit by it the full effects. As for what they actually do, before level 78, these two only grant 10% damage reduction. However, after 78, they grant a heal over time effect, but this healing is completely wasted if the other healer is too quick to heal after taking damage. Moving on, there's a few more mitigations and some heal boosts to mention as well, as keeping track of these can help stagger your own. First up, both Sage and Scholar have another 10% mitigation buff on a 2-minute cooldown, though by the time you see their buff icons pop up, the only difference between the two is that Scholar's Expedience makes you run faster for 10 seconds. Scholar also has Fey Illumination, which grants 5% magic reduction and a 10% healing boost for 20 seconds. It might not seem like much, but it all adds up. Next, White Mage has Temperance, which grants the party 10% damage reduction and a 20% bonus to healing for 20 seconds. This ability is most easily recognized by the white wings on the healer's back, and it also comes with this very unique audio cue. This last section is just a handful of other abilities that are all rather unique. Getting all the Scholar stuff out of the way first, when you see their big bright fairy seraph come out, there's two things to keep note of. The first is that the Scholar then has 2 free uses of an AoE heal plus shield over the next 20 seconds. So don't be too quick to blow your own AoE healing cooldowns when your Scholar is essentially setting up some of their own. The other thing to keep note of is that the icons for Fey Illumination and Whispering Dawn will change when used with Seraph. So that's just 2 more icons to be on the lookout for. Next we have Excogitation, which is a buff that can be placed on someone and will heal for a decent amount when that player's HP goes below 50%. Otherwise, it'll heal when its 45-second duration expires. In most cases, if you see this on someone, usually a tank, so long as they are not going to die to the next hit, just let it do its thing and pop, as you'll generally get a lot more healing out of it this way than when it heals due to expiring, as by then, that player might not even need healing. And lastly for the Scholar, when you see a greenish tether going from a fairy to a player, that just means that they are getting increased healing over time from the fairy, and that the fairy is only focusing on them. Now this does not mean that you shouldn't heal the tethered player, but know that they're getting a steady infusion of HP every few seconds. Next up is Astro's Earthly Star, which can be placed down wherever they want. This can then be detonated manually for a sizable AoE heal, otherwise it will pop on its own after 20 seconds. However, after 10 seconds it'll grow in size, and its heal becomes stronger. So most Astros usually time this, and then throw it down a bit before they expect to take damage, and then detonate it or have it pop on its own, with the full heal value shortly after you take the damage. This is truly an amazing free heal on a short cooldown, so if you don't want to make your Astro cry or rage, just keep an eye out for this blue orb and let it do its thing. There's then Haima and Panhaima, which both place 5 stacks of replenishing shields on you for 15 seconds. Haima is the single target version, and Panhaima is the slightly weaker but AoE version. When the duration of these buffs end, you will also be healed for a set amount for every stack that's left. And Haima and Panhaima do stack with each other too. Now, Haima might be hard to keep track of, but Panhaima is very easy to see being used and also has a very unique audio cue too. So, as a co-healer, please keep an eye out for how many stacks your party has, and use your own personal Panhaima buff to get an idea of when the heal will go out, and for about how much. Basically, don't go throwing out too much healing if you know Panhaima is about to expire with a few stacks left, otherwise you'll be wasting a big part of the ability. White Mage then gets something that's very similar at level 90 called Liturgy of the Bell, which looks kind of like a heart or a flowerish bell that they can place down on the field, and they'll also get this buff icon on them too. Once placed, every time the White Mage takes damage, everyone in range of the flower will be healed, and this can trigger up to 5 times within those 20 seconds. On top of that, it will also heal for a set amount for every stack that's left when the duration ends, or when the White Mage reuses it. So before big or multi-hit raid wides, look for the flower on the field, or the buff icon on the White Mage, and you'll probably end up saving yourself from blowing more cooldowns than necessary. Last but not least, at level 90, Astro gets Macrocosmos, which to put simply, basically takes a portion of the damage taken and returns it as HP. If you know there's big party-wide damage incoming, and you see this icon pop up on you or your party, know that so long as you live through it, everyone will most likely have a big chunk of their HP returned directly after. And that's about all I want to mention for now to first keep track of when you start to heal in 8-player content. Overall, this of course barely scratches the surface on healing, but I really didn't want to overwhelm new and returning healers. And this is the kind of stuff that I wish I was taught when I first started healing. Everything else just comes with experience playing different healers, healing alongside different healing jobs, watching other healers play, and just communication.